if you're joining me for the first time today, it's our pleasure to have you come along. We have 6 different parts of the webinar, so this is part 3, so welcome. Today we will be looking at the market share in Australia of who people are with disability and impairments. So there's lots of different stats and different resources and questions that we all have and need to understand to get to know this market share better. So thanks for joining me. I know most of you may be stuck at home having to work from home, so we're trying to make it that you guys can all take away something from this to use in the future once this terrible health crisis is over. These changes can't obviously be made today or tomorrow, but if you write things down, keep it in mind that there are people out there with disabilities and impairments wanting to come and work in your workplace. So that is our message, and we would love for you to jump on board. Let's do first an acknowledgement of country. 30-foot drop acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and the community. We pay our respects to the Indigenous people, their cultures and beliefs, to both elders past and present. So, 30-foot drop funding. 30-foot drop would like to acknowledge the Department of Communities Disability Services for funding this and many other initiatives. Without their support, such projects such as Two Wise Monkeys wouldn't exist or see the light of day. So we'd be much more poorer for it as a community if it wasn't for this funding. This workshop is part of a Realities and Advantages of an Access and Inclusion grant awarded to 30-foot drop as an information, linkages and capacity building grant for 2018 and 2019. Okay, we'll just go through some housekeeping for the Two Wise Monkeys workshops. Unfortunately, we do not have all the resources so that we can go live on all the platforms where we can answer questions. So if you have any questions, please head over to the link below this video, which is www.30footdrop.com.au/live. If you have any questions, jump into the live chat box and you can send me anything you like. It doesn't even have to be about today, it could be something you might want to share, anything you like. Nothing's off limits. We'll be covering a lot of information in a short period of time, so we ask please if people can minimise any distractions. I know that's quite hard in the current situation that we're in. Next week I'm going to be taking this home and doing it from home with my 2 children, so that is going to be interesting. Anyway, just minimise any distractions if you can. Grab a pen and paper, grab an iPad to write things down. And also, if you mention 30-foot drop or you share our information, please make sure that we are tagged in it so that we can get more involved and get more exposure out there, because the more we can get this out there, the better we're all going to be as a community. We also record the sessions, so if we miss anything, or you miss anything, you can go back and re-watch it later once I've hit the end button. And if you know anyone that may benefit from any of these webinars, please let them know. They can register and log in to join the next lot that are coming up, which I've got 2 more next week, 4 and 5, and then we'll be starting again at the end of April after the school holidays. So please have a look on our website or our Facebook page for the next webinars and let anyone know that might be interested. And the reason why we do it live is so that we can all interact with each other and be open and honest with each other about what needs to change or anything else you want to add to it. You'll notice that there's very little written content on the slides, and that's because we're all here to interact with each other. And it also makes it easier for people to understand what we're doing. There's not too much complicated wording up there. It's just nice and easy to follow, and it means that people with learning disabilities or any kind of disability can easily follow the pages. At the end, we have a short survey that we would be really grateful for if you guys could fill that out. There's only about 5 questions. Let us know how you thought the webinar went, because any feedback is good feedback for us. Okay, enough of the housekeeping. Let's introduce ourselves. I'll introduce Ben. He is the other wise monkey. He is see no evil. So Ben's disability is more visual. You can clearly see that he's in a wheelchair, and he's the director of 30-Foot Drop and 2 Wise Monkeys. He had an accident when he was 22, which landed him in a wheelchair. He realised at that age that there wasn't enough resources, there wasn't enough knowing, and there wasn't enough help for people in his situation. So we're here to open that up and get that changing for people with disability and impairment. So my story is more of a hidden one. I am hear no evil, and just by looking at me you probably can't tell what I may suffer from. Through me you will realise that you'll hear no evil about impairment. So when I was 8, I was diagnosed with mild dyslexia. Teachers used to hit me on the head, read out my low marks, and yell at me in front of my classmates. Why don't you understand? What's wrong with you? Making me, of course, feel completely dumb and insignificant and unworthy. But despite these challenges growing up, it just made me more determined to succeed and prove these teachers wrong. I did really well at school, but I had to put in 4 times the amount of work, extra study, extra help on the side sometimes. But I passed, and that's fine. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to be an amazing mathematician or an amazing speller to get somewhere in life. I found my passion was art and photography, and I did really well with that, getting 90%, 80%. And I did really well at those subjects. So I found my passion, and I followed that passion all around the world. I've worked in many galleries all around the world. I've got diplomas in arts. I have diplomas and certificates in museum grade artwork, so I can work with museum grade artwork. I can help preserve it, look after it. I have a counselling diploma as well, because I really like to help people and give them advice when they're not in a good place. And I also have my own photography business at the moment, which is Lisa Hall Creative, if you wanted to check it out. So that is us. But isn't there supposed to be 3 wise monkeys who speak no evil? You guys can take a guess. Who is the 3rd monkey? You. Yes, well, the aim of today's workshop is to turn you into a wise monkey. You'll begin on a journey of realising that, impairment or not, we are all human and deserve to be treated the same and equally, and acknowledged like everyone else in the community. Such an important message. Okay. So, how are we going to turn you into a wise monkey? To get you started on the path of a wise monkey, there is a lot to learn about people with impairment and their potential impacts on your business. We're going to examine the size of the market segment and what people with impairment represent, explaining who they are and their potential customer base. Then we will examine the potential impacts they can have on your business. And after covering all of this good stuff, we will do an open forum session. So that open forum session is open throughout the webinar anyway, so you can ask any questions along the way. But at the end, we do a 5-minute question time where I turn the camera off and you can send in any questions. Okay, so how are we going to cover this? What will our teaching method be? The answer is open, honest discussion. So I think I said it before, the more open we can be about this, the more changes we can make together as a community. So if you feel there's something you need to talk about, there's something that's really affecting you, then don't keep it to yourself. Speak about it, let it be known, because that's the only way changes can be made, just like what Ben's doing with these workshops right now. So, next up is terminology and review. So there's a terminology that we use here at Two Wise Monkeys. A lot of people get this wording mixed up, thinking it's the same thing. So first we'll be looking at the difference between disability and impairment. An impairment is an injury, illness or congenital condition that causes or is likely to cause a difference of physiological and psychological function. In short, your impairment is your medical diagnosis. So my impairment is that I have mild dyslexia. A disability, on the other hand, is the loss or limitations to take part in opportunities on an equal and social level due to social and environmental barriers. It is, as the word implies, something that makes you unable to access or participate in something. Very important message. So an example for me would be too much wording, complex information, or sometimes stylized script can make it hard for people with a learning disability, dyslexia, anything like that, hard to understand, which makes it hard for us to get the right information that we need from your service or business. This is especially important to remember because some impairments like mine are hidden. So potentially you could have lost a lot of business coming in your doors because of too much complex information. It's just something to think about with your marketing or your websites. If it's too complicated, then if people don't understand it, they're not going to go any further. I know I don't. Anyway, I hope that all makes sense to everyone, the difference between disability and impairment. Next, we're going to look at access and inclusion. And Fortunately, this is quite often referred to as the same word, which in fact it's not. Access refers to the removal or reduction of barriers, physical and attitudinal, to participate in activities and functions of a community. At its core, access focuses a lot on the physical world around us and is easily assessed with a checklist. Inclusion is more of a physiological state of being and is the process hereby every person, irrespective of their age, disability, religion, sexual preference or nationality, who wishes to, can participate fully in all aspects of an activity or service in the same way as every other member in the community. Inclusion is making sure that everyone can take part. So if you have a business where you're sort of giving off a vibe that people with disability or impairment aren't really welcome, then you're not including them. And we all deserve to be included. There's no reason why someone with an impairment or a disability shouldn't be allowed to go into a certain shop or a certain cafe. Make sure everyone that walks in your door feels included in your business or service. So once again, I hope that makes sense. If there's any questions, please head over to the chat box, which is by following the link under this video. Okay, so people with impairment. Recognizing your market. Let's get into the good stuff. Okay, now we're going to talk about something here which points out that you can easily forget about certain markets, like what happened in this next story. Here's a business idea. Ignore a potential market. That's what many sports and athletic related businesses did until they realised in the mid-1990s that they had been passing on a gold mine. women. Yes, the other half of the population who some thought should just be playing with Barbie dolls or pushing prams, playing Barbie dolls or prams. Well, in the 1990s, there was a turning point as the NBC's 1996 Summer Olympic Games coverage targeted women and sports much more than previously, and many more female-orientated sports advertisements, apparels, and equipment lines emerged. So imagine that women would actually be interested in doing the same things as every other humans, such as sport. Well, could your business or a business you know of potentially be ignoring and missing out on other potential markets, such as people with impairment, people with disability, people with different sexual preferences or nationalities? There's so many people that potentially could be missing out on your business or service. Okay, so consider, for example, a population that has clear, persistent needs that are not being adequately fulfilled. This population spans the world and is growing and includes very motivated customers. Since this population is currently being underserved and misunderstood by many businesses, many lost customers would be very grateful and loyal to your business if you could meet their needs. This is a population that is estimated to have a disposable income of 54 million Australia-wide and growing. Also consider how margins are always tight, and that finding a new and neglected population can boost your business. So let's have a look at what this population is in Australia. People with impairment. How big a market share do you think they represent? Here is Australia's population. Now Ben assures me he's counted 100 little men. There could be 98 sometimes, there could be 105 sometimes, he says. Anyway, we'll just go with that. There is 100 people there. Okay, so there are approximately 5% of the Australian population living with a severe or profound impairment. These are people who require assistance or have difficulty with mobility, communication, or self-care. Add to this 5% above, now add another 4% of the population who are the unpaid primary carers of people with an impairment or disability. You now have a minimum of 9% of the population potentially missing out on products and services. Now that's a fair share. And it doesn't even include the families and friends who accompany this 9% on holidays or different sorts of things like that. You may ask, if it is such a big market share, then surely they are already being served. Aren't there items and services and events such as the Paralympic Games where that are for every 4 years for these people? Yes, well, there is that, but that's a bit like saying to women who wanted to play sports in the 1970s, yeah, but don't you have hopscotch? While some businesses do seem to understand the market of people with disabilities, many don't. And that is why we are all here today. Okay. So, Deloitte and the Australian Human Rights Commission released a report in February 2017 called the Missing Out Report. The business case for customer diversity. And in it they represented their research findings about the missed opportunities that occur when businesses do not extend their values of fairness, equality and respect to the diverse customer bases. This research covered the diversity areas of gender equality, marriage equality, people with impairments, age, cultural diversity and practicing a noticeable faith. It is well worth reading and can be found in our digital library. The findings there will shock you. It is just crazy, and once you read that missing out report, it really, really wants you to make changes, because it's appalling. It almost makes me feel like crying. It's that appalling. And I don't think I mentioned before, but any of the resources or anything I speak about today, there's a lot more information about everything on our website. So head into the website and look under sources and then resources, and you'll find everything else you need to know. Okay, let's move into some of the findings and results that focus on impairments and business needs of the market. Okay, so here is graph 1. Here's the findings that the missing out report had. As a customer, more people with an impairment are finding that places or businesses often do not provide the products and services that they need. So that's 35% of people with an impairment who are not getting products and services that they need. And 27% of people who don't have an impairment also feel this way. So that's quite high percentages. You're missing out on this market. These people aren't spending money because you're not providing for their needs. Okay, graph 2. As a customer, over a quarter of people with an impairment usually have a fear of rejection or embarrassment when interacting with businesses, and that is a lot of scared customers. And do scared customers spend money? No. So that's 26 people with an impairment said yes, and 14% without an impairment. Now, let's head into graph 3. As a customer over the last 12 months, I was often treated less favourably than other customers based on a particular characteristic. So that's 1 in 3 people with an impairment treated this way by a company because of a disability and impairment that they have. That's just awful. Awful stats. And like I said, once you read the missing out report, it just makes everything so much clearer, and it's just so discriminating. Okay, so which one are we up to? Graph 4. Yeah. The last one shocked us the most. Getting discriminated against by one or more organisation. This is almost 30% of people who feel like they are being discriminated against by a company or business. Crazy figures. Once again, you're not going to spend money at these types of businesses. So these stats show that there is definitely a market that is not having their needs met. So next, let's have a look at who this market share is and who are these people behind the stats. Who are people with impairment? People with impairment are just like us. We have passions, loves, and families. We purchase consumer goods like food, clothing, and cars. We go to the movies, we go out for dinner, we go on holidays, and we have hobbies, but for some sad reason, we are treated differently. In short, people with impairment are active contributors to the community and the economy. And as a result, we represent a market share to businesses and organisations. Because we are a market share, we also are able to impact your organisation, and how we do that is up to you. Okay, potential impacts. Let's have a look at some of the impacts people with impairment can have on your business. So now we are going to look at only a minority and ethical consumerism. Right, first up is only a minority. When it comes to minorities, people can often say, it's only a minority, there isn't enough of them to make a difference. As discussed earlier, we can safely say that it's about 9% of the population. What research has found is that people with impairment are a decisive and influential minority. Let's have a closer look at these results and go over the missing out report and the stats. The first graph is ceasing transactions. Over the past 12 months, I have ceased a transaction because I have felt I was treated unfairly. As well as as we all know, purchasing power is in the hands of customers, and when people do not get what they want in terms of either product or service, they cease the transaction. So that's 29% of people with an impairment ceasing a transaction. In the missing out report, they examined this closely and add other factors such as respect and fairness. Okay, next up is graph 2. The results in this report show that 1 in 5 customers without an impairment will cease a transaction. This jumps to almost 1 in 3 for people with an impairment when they are not treated with fairness and respect, showing that a negative experience is more likely to drive a customer with an impairment away. 29%. Okay, number 3. More than just walking away from a sale, people with impairment are twice as likely than the rest of the population to dissuade others from using your product or service. Twice as likely, so we need to be careful. Basically, if your customer is treating people with an impairment with no respect or no fairness, your business is already being affected. Okay, negative effects. I've been asked in the past if supporting diversity in businesses can have the adverse effect. Can it drive our current customers away? The missing out report found that 12% of people were negatively affected by a business diversity reputation, but 58% were positively affected and 30% weren't that worried at all. Yes, you may lose that 12% of people, but you gain so much by being more inclusive. This result is not impairment specific, but includes other minorities that can be quite decisive, including marriage equality, people with impairments, and older people. But it just shows we need to be inclusive for all of these people, not just disability and impairment. We need to be included in every single thing that there is to offer. We're all human and we are all the same. Okay, key findings. To finish this section off, I want to read you a really relevant key finding. Customers with an impairment are 3 times more likely to avoid an organisation and twice as likely to dissuade others because of an organisation's negative diversity reputation. There is a good chance that if your business isn't accessible or inclusive, then it's already being impacted. We've covered the possible negative effects, but let's have a look how we can get some positive effects going. Who here has heard of ethical consumerism? Ethical consumerism isn't just a positive for financial impacts, it's also a positive movement for a better future for everyone. Ethical consumerism is a form of political activism based on ideas that purchasers and markets consume not only goods but also implicitly embrace the process used to produce them. By choosing certain products over others, or even whether to choose that product at all. Consumers can embrace or reject a particular environmental or labour practice and make other valuable claims based on the ethical values that they hold. Exercising choice in this way creates incentives for producers to make production practices which conform with consumers' values. Successful campaigns waged by ethical consumerism movements have popularised dolphin-free tuna, foods that are free from GMOs, sweatshop-free clothing, fair trade coffee, cosmetics free from animal testing, and conflict-free diamonds. So people can choose. I know a lot of people that would prefer to have makeup that hasn't been animal tested. So these producers producing these products are starting to see that, oh, hang on a minute, our consumers don't like us animal testing, so we need to stop animal testing, and they follow the movements. So if we can change the movements for people with disability and impairment, it has a flow-on effect and a positive effect. Okay, so applying, oh no, gone too far ahead. implying to an impairment. Okay, so how can ethical consumerism be connected to people with an impairment? Who's heard of the quiet hour run at Coles and Woolworths? Okay, this probably today with the current health situation may not be happening, I'm not sure, but before this all happened, Coles and Woolworths had a special time frame for people with disability and impairments to go into the store and shop, so it was nice and quiet and calm for them. So let me explain. Some impairments make some people hyper aware or of their surroundings and activity, and making activities such as going to the supermarket really challenging. So at Coles and Woolworths, every Tuesday between 10:30 and 11:30, store lighting is dimmed by 50%, the radio is switched off, the register scanners reduced to its lowest level, trolley collection is stopped, roll cages are removed from the shop floor, PA announcements are stopped except in the case of an emergency, free fruit is offered to customers, and additional members are on the floor to help customers. This is an amazing initiative. It makes a great difference to many people. It has also increased the ethical reputation of both businesses. So if you search the internet about the quiet hour in Australia for Coles and Woolworths, you'll see all of that information. So how do you think it has affected customers? Definitely in a more positive way. So this may not be happening today, but once the health crisis is over, it is good to know for you guys that there is a time that you can go into the supermarket and not feel that anxiety or the uncomfortableness you might feel when you go in. So it's a really nice thing that they're doing, and they're even doing it now in this current health situation where they've opened up the doors to the older generation to go in on their own so that they can get the things that they need. So that's very similar. They've done the right thing by those older people being able to go into the shop and get what they need. So that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed part 3, and I hope everything made sense. If you need to look at any more resources or watch it again, you can watch it again once I have pressed end. And the missing out report, please go and watch that, because I know you've got time now. So go and watch the missing out report and not watch it, listen to it. And head over to us next week to watch webinar part 4. But for now, I'm going to be asking questions, anyone to send in any questions that you might have. So jump into the chat box and ask anything that you like. But if you do have to go, please take care, stay well, look after each other, and ask yourself every day, how are you feeling? How are you going? If you're feeling a little bit depressed or a bit sad, then jump on the phone and ring someone that will make you laugh, or ring someone that you haven't spoken to for a long time, or download there's an app called Smiling Mind. It's so relaxing, and it just puts your headspace in a good headspace. I know a lot of us aren't in a good headspace at the moment, and it's only the beginning, so it's very, very scary about where our heads can go, and I'm even one of those people. We need to stick together, and we need to try and get through this together and think positively. So help your neighbours out if they need anything. If they're older, help them out. Do you need this? Do you need that? I can pick it up from the supermarket. All that kind of stuff. Stay well and love yourself. Anyway, I'm going to head over to questions. So if you have to go, that's fine, and I will click the question button to see who would like to ask me any questions. I will see you soon. Welcome back. Okay, those that stayed on, there didn't appear to be any questions today, which is totally fine. I hope you enjoyed today's webinar. I'm running it again tonight if you know anyone that may benefit from webinar part 3. But hopefully I will see many of you next week to join me in the part 4 and part 5. Please have a look at our website or our Facebook pages for any other information or resources. Take care and stay well. See you later.